Hello everyone, there are three main ideas. The very first idea, and I think it's the most important idea, it's that in the Arabic language, the science of linguistics has a gray definition. It's the modern Arabic language in academia. What do I mean exactly about having a problem? We will get to that. So that's the first point. There is a fundamental problem with the definition of the science of linguistics in the Arabic language, in the modern Arabic language, not the actual Arabic language. So it's people's interpretation of it. Point number two, inflammations, geopolitical inflammations. Point number three, religious favoritism. So these are the three main points. So right now we will begin with the first point. In the English language, when you call a field of knowledge science, then it's trial and error. Then it is something that is not about emotions or affiliations or something that is related to mood. No, subjectivity. Science is all about objectivity, 100% objectivity. So that's science. However, in the modern interpretation of it all, we describe it as adabiyat, which means discipline. And I understand that even biology, medicine itself, you have fields of knowledge that are described as being disciplines, or literature even. But the problem is that in the Arabic collective consciousness currently, it somewhat gives it a gray area. So it really is wonky. It's not that solid. It's really not that dependable 100%. It's still in its liquid form, if you will. So there is no emphasis on science, because you can, in Arabic, attach any field of knowledge to the word ilm. And in the Arabic language, when you say ilm, then it is science. When you say ilm, it is science. But in our current, let's underline the current, everyone, please. The current field of knowledge of linguistics in the Arabic world is adab. Something that people just want to express their emotions with. So when you go to etymology, when you go to phonology, when you go to morphology, people swing back and forth. And we can give a prime example of the name Jasim, for example. The name Jasim is a name that is prevalent in the coastal region of the Arabian Peninsula. And people talk among themselves. They argue. Some of them say, well, it is from the word body, jism. So it means someone who has a good body. And others will say, well, my opinion is that it is from qasim, a description of a type of a sword. So when you objectively stand between them two and then explain to them, there are measurements. It's like bringing a ruler or like any type of scale, if you will. Like you're talking about metrics, kilograms, something that you can calculate. When you perceive the science of linguistics as science, then you want to go to these measurements. So you ask people, what are your measurements? they just rely on a hunch. Not all of them, of course, but mostly it's relying on a hunch. It's a challenge of someone's wit. I sincerely believe that someone who doesn't rely on his or her wit and only relies on measurements, I think the results will be way more dependable. Because it's not an IQ test, it's a research. It's not an IQ test at all. Not necessarily. I mean, if you got, it's like saying, well, can you do this very complex equation? Well, guess what? I have a very advanced calculator or a computer. Then whatever pops on the screen, as long as you type the equation correctly, yeah, guess what? I'm going to rely on that. So let's go back to Jasim's name. You can go to history, plus you go to how Arabic itself functions, plus you can go to the dialectical nature of that region. So, we will begin. Historically, the Prophet Muhammad had a son, and his son was called Qasim. How is this significant? People in that region have what is called kunya. A kunya means that you call someone as the father of. So if you have a guy called Jack, for example, culturally we would ask, what's your son's name? If he didn't have a son or doesn't have a son, you ask him about his father's name, and then he tells you, for example, Tom. Then you're going to automatically call Jack the father of Tom. So that cultural significance is functional, beneficial to the research. So sometimes we actually use a third method. So the first method is what? Directly, just what's your actual son's name? You don't have any? That's fine. What's your father's name? All right. What's your name? If he says Badr, then automatically we call him the father of Nasr. You see how intricate these things are? If his name is Muhammad, we automatically call him the father of Qasim. That's the historical significance. So the first historical significance is this. So how does that process with us now? In Kuwait, if we know anybody whose name is Muhammad, dialectically we call him Muhammad. Alright? Muhammad. So anybody whose name is Muhammad, we immediately call him Abu Jasim. So dialectically, the name Qasim, in our tongue, it is Jasim. Alright, so a palatalization happened. So that's significant. Cool. What about another measurement? In the Arabic language itself, if we want to say someone has a good body, we don't say a past tense, Jasim. It is impossible. It's like saying he bodied his body. It's really unorthodox and just it just this. I guess if you want to wrap your head around it, yeah, you kind of say it's like saying your adorableness is adorabling with an ing. You say, well, when you said it, I get it. Adorabling with an ing, it's funky. We get it, but it's not natural. It's just, yeah, it functions, but it doesn't really, it doesn't really count. You know, It's a made-up thing. It's really not that reliable. So in the Arabic language, if you want to say someone who has a good body, like a strong body for a man, mu with a mim, mufa'al, there was a mufa'al. So it's the scale of mufa'al. And the scales, if you want, I can make another video of. So we say dialectically, imjassim. And in Arabic, we can say ala wazni fa'il, jasim. So if someone who has a good body, we can say mujassim, dialectically imjassim, or classical standard Fusha Arabic, jasim. Jasim, not jasim, jasim. It's jasim, not jasim. So if you want to go to actual professional Arabic Fusha, it's jasim. It's not jasim at all. So when you go to now the third measurement, how can you measure that? The third measurement is that you say jasim. Dialectically, that region, coastal region, turns the qa sound into a ja. So if you want to say divide, you say qasm, and the verb is yaqsim. So the sword itself divides what it cuts. So it is called qasim. Alright? So in that region, in Al-Ahsa, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and in Qatar, and in Bahrain, and in Emirates, and in Kuwait as well, you have the qa sound turning into a jah sound. So in olden times, they used to say التجار تجاسموا والجسم ومشوا. So what this whole example is, that the merchants divided the divided gain that they gained. That's a rough translation. So they divided what they earned. So they actually described everything being divided as jah. But when schools came along, and then Arabic standardization actually washed over these dialectical phenomena. But it's better yet to say brushed them off or bumped them out, because washing itself might not be gentle. Washing may indicate that these dialectical phenomena are a bad thing, and they are not. You know, so better to use the term bumped out. All right. So yeah, so bumped out most of these dialectical phenomena, as it is doing right now currently. So when you go to a study from the University of Georgia, you would see that dialectical phenomena, or any sort of a clear, distinctive way of speaking in different regions, is increasingly getting diluted. And the reason is logistics. When you have roads, cars, regional dialects just keeps on getting diluted, because they mix with one another. The more that they do that, the more that they get infused, and they lose their like very loud and proud and just clear distinction. So that's what happens. So when you talk to people, you might say, well, that's fine. You're gonna see people saying, no, you're 100% wrong, and all of these measurements, yeah, whatever, just shrug it off. That's fine, that's okay. I mean, realistically, it's not our job to convince people. It's just to bring the correct measurements, and voila, that's the result. The problem is that you have people who are researchers and are being presented on TV screens and write articles and all of that. And good for them, but they just don't rely on these measurements. So they would casually and nonchalantly would say, well, my opinion is that no, Jassim is a body. And that's it. The biggest problem is that collective consciousness, people's general opinion, at the end of the day, might stifle an actual researcher's process. So when you have a lot of people saying a lot of wrong things, that's going to mess the whole thing up. And this is exactly why I keep on stressing. We, unfortunately, currently, and let's underline the currently, in the Arabic language, we can lump anything with the word ilm, like the science of dream interpretation. And it's 100% not scientific. What they talk about, it is not scientific. Nor religious. It's religiously themed, but not religious. It's bid'ah. So once people see it as religiously themed, it's a deer in the headlights situation. And let's underline the themed. So it's not the religion itself, it's just religiously themed. It's like writing a book and then putting on that book religiously themed shapes, geometrical shapes, and religiously themed texts. That would be way more than enough for everybody to just automatically assume that it is the religion itself. So that's really is awful, Well, not everybody, but everybody who's vulnerable to that. So that's the problem. So we're now going to reason number 2, geopolitical inflammations. When you talk about Semitic languages, I don't need to say anything else. Just say the word Semitic and you're good to go. And that's it. And that's really is sad. It really is sad. It really is sad. It simply is sad. And I think it's one of its miseries. People don't get to afford knowledge just financially. Knowledge requires a steady temperament, and you get that in a peaceful environment that guarantees peace. But when people are understandably in survival mode, understandably, they get to be very much so reactionary. So when I research a word like the word فلش, هذا تفلش, this got to فلش. فلش is simply not Arabic, nor Hebrew, nor Persian, nor Turkish. The 4 main languages that, what's happening in the Middle East. No need to state the obvious. So these are the 4 most famous languages in the Middle East: Persian, Turkish, Hebrew, and Arabic. So when I research a word like فلش, and I have created, and I still got, a channel that is 7 years old right now, and I just want people's actual, sincere, objective participation, because people, unfortunately, don't give a lot of trust into academia, and that's really is sad. So when you tell people it is an academic research, And then they're gonna laugh because it's an academic research on our dialect, and that's self-deprecating. It's like saying, well, it's our dialect. It's our dialect. Like they're downgrading it. Like it's something that it doesn't matter. It does. Because a dialect is the actual language. You have a model of the language itself, how you ought to speak, like al-Fusha. All right, that's the model that you want to go with. But the actual language that is actually alive currently, it's the dialects. And they're way older than people think, and they think it's so preposterous, if you will, and they get flabbergasted by that. Dialects are always older than the language itself, because the official language is the amalgamation or the collective form of all of their tongues. So, of course, dialects are older than the language itself. So, let's continue. So when you say Fellish, it's Syriac. It's Syriac. It was Syriac all along. Yeah, so we'll go to point number 3 and we will finish with that. Yeah, but people ascribe that to a certain religion. So sometimes people unfortunately get overly passionate about that, and that simply is misguided. Every religion, and I have to state that, dear listeners, every religion does not consider it sinful to respect and to acknowledge other languages. It's the opposite way. Every religion promotes linguistical inclusivity because you want to call people to your religion, so you warmly welcome their culture. And what is their culture? Their language. So it is so simple and basic and obvious, but it's the whole tense situation that we have been in for, sadly, thousands of years. So it's such a luxury to just point at a word and say, yeah, objectively it's from eski Türkçe. This is from Old Turkish, because when you say Turkish, most people say it's Osmanlı, so they say it's Ottoman, it's Uthmaniya. So they're hinting, well, you don't know, probably it's Kurdish, Persian, Arabic, and they just exclude Turkish in general. And that's not objective. Objectively, the Turkish language in the Ottoman Empire era, yeah, it was a bazaar. It did get to learn a lot of words from a lot of languages, but there are words that are objectively 100% Turkish in origin. It's from eski Türkçe, such as the word utu, which means to iron, a hot iron that you press on an animal. All right, what is that? A branding iron. So it's the action of it or the actual word. I really gotta go back to Turkçe etymology. So doing that is utu. Utu. It got entangled with Kurdo-Persian suffix, which is the E sound at the end. So it became uti. So until this day, in Kuwait, because we got that product from Iraq, your iron that you iron your clothes with is called uti. So that word is 100% in its nucleus is Turkish, but the suffix is Persian and Kurdish. You got that. But the whole sensitivity of it all makes people be overtly sensitive about all of that. Like, you know, it's like cheering your football team, but sadly in a more intense kind of a way that just denies people the beauty of all of these linguistical enrichments, if you will. So, religious favoritism, again with the whole description of Semitic languages from one August Ludwig von Schlitzer in 1771 in Germany, when he described languages as being the languages of the son of Sam or Sham in different languages. So, basically, in various religions, it's not scientific, it's religious. It doesn't mean automatically it's wrong, but again, dear listeners, it's not scientific. So, objectively speaking, when you say scientific, it means that everybody agreed on it, regardless of their religions, due to having a measurement that you can use experimentally. And that's the whole reason that you get rewarded for your faith. That's the leap of faith. Then there is a gap. Isn't it a leap of faith? Then there is a gap. There is an intellectual, a mental gap. If you want to do a leap of faith, that's you got all the right in the world to do that. But when it comes to a scientific, academic research, everybody gotta build on that. All right. So it's the story of Noah's Ark. So he basically had, according to biblical sources, 3 sons. Sam or Sham. So if I say a name and then or, it means different languages call them differently. So the 3 sons: Sam or Sham, Ham or Ham. The third one is Japheth or Japheth. And it's really interesting that different languages and dialects always replace the ya and ja. So the 3 sons of Noah. The theory is the religiously themed theory in 1771, when August Ludwig von Schlitzer first coined the term Semitic and Semitic peoples and Semitic languages, thus beginning the exclusion of people of other religions. And that's the whole, this is I can't point at it and then say that's the exact root of it all, but what else? Like when people of other faith at that time, Christian Europe, when there was a huge emphasis on Christianity, people of other faith weren't called, still to this day, by their actual race or ethnicity. Their ethnicity itself is described by their religion. And that's why I keep repeating, that's not scientific. So if you call someone, he is biologically, genetically, if you look at his DNA, you're going to describe it as his religious affiliation. That's illogical. What if he or she changed their faith? Does their body transform? That's just, even in genetic, even in the pure science of genetics, and you got your microscopes and you got everything in your lab, you know, laboratory, and you're looking and examining everything. Still to this day, people would describe people's actual genetic makeup, biological, physical, materialistic, described as their own faith, that they just inherited, they didn't even choose it. That's illogical. They actually have done that in academia with this religiously themed theory. What is it? That the sons of Sam, or Sham, alright. That's why you get the whole Semitic languages. His offsprings generated different branches of languages. And these different branches of languages is going to be called Semitic languages. I said to myself, biblically, this must mean that each son of Noah had to live in an entirely different continent for this situation to occur. It didn't happen. They lived in the same place. What about their wives? What about their father? What about other people on that ark? When they were in that ark, they had different linguistical influences. So it just doesn't function. It's impossible. And guess what? The date of the flood is earlier than the beginning of other Semitic languages. So the timeline just doesn't align. And when you go about and then think of Proto-Indo-European languages, they had an older beginning than the ark, biblical story. So people might say, well, what does that mean? Does that mean that people find the Bible is incorrect? That's the whole awkwardness of it all. It's because people missed one crucial point. That was a man-made theory, religiously themed, folks. It was religiously themed. It's not religion itself. It's not the religion itself. The Bible itself did not claim that the sons of Noah, Sham and Ham and Japheth, they did not create different languages. The Bible did not say that. It's Germany's academia that said that. They have created a religiously themed theory. But people pointed the blame at the Bible itself. It wasn't the Bible itself. It was a sort of an interpretation with a theory. So this is how it was. People's best effort was ascribing people's genetic makeup by the flood story. And then things got messy. And then people described their religious affiliations as being their genetic, biological makeup. And that's how everything got even way more messy. It's like saying an African and an Asian and then an European. They believe in the same belief, then automatically they are lumped as having the same genetic lineage. Not that close. If you want to say, well, ultimately we're all Adam's son. Yeah, but you're not saying that. You're saying you're that son, that specific son from Noah, just because you changed faith. And that's how people just zigzag around the whole situation. And that just gets to be way more messy and messy and messier and messier and messier. And that just abruptly, bumps actual research. Do you want an actual research? For me, I believe that the etymology of the word kuti in the Greek language, in Helleniki glossa, is kut, which is Akkadian, and it meant a vessel that contains a liquid that you can drink, beer or oil. So still to this day, kuti in the Greek language is used for canisters, and also can mean a box. It's basically a container, exactly like the Akkadian language. So when you go to an article from New Scientist, you would see that the whole debate around the origins of the whole tree of the Indo-European languages, it's that the soil of which the whole tree of Indo-European languages sprouted is the Fertile Crescent. It's from the Fertile Crescent. But due to religious favoritism from everybody, unfortunately, people would say, well, it's gotta be Arabic, it's gotta be Hebrew, it's gotta be Greek, it's gotta be Syriac. And that's what gets to make everything else become messy. Even though that truth is really boring, I mean, the truth itself is really not that good at being marketable, but what you can build on it is going to be supremely more interesting than what religious favoritism can bring. What you can build on it. So in the Kuwaiti dialect, we have the word gudi, which means a canister as well. So how can you relate that? It's not Arabic at all. It is just not Arabic. It's in Greek as well. So what's the connection? The Fertile Crescent. That's the connection. So that's something that's mind-blowing. So look at the word qit, for example, which means a cat. Qattous in the Tunisian dialect. Alright? You have it in Latin, and you have it also in Greek. Gata, gatu, gatus, gati, gatake, gatitsa, etc. Gatula. So it's gata, qit. So people with religious favoritism might say, well, everything began from Arabic. The Quran never said that. The Quran never claimed at all that languages began from Arabic. Never. People just picked that up all on their own, created that, and then once it gets awkward, they feel insecure. You created that awkward position. The Quran did not state that at all. And in terms of the tradition of hadith, which is the Prophet's sayings, every hadith that brought the name Sam, Ham, and Yafith wasn't a sahih. It wasn't agreed upon that it is a correct hadith. So Islam, in terms of Islam, we really don't have to believe in the narration of the sons of Sam and Ham and Yafith. So Ham, Japheth, and Ham, so Sham, Ham, and Japheth, we really don't have to believe them. We're not obligated to believe in them in the religion of Islam at all. And even if we did, we don't have to believe in them affecting linguistics at all. So that's the whole messiness that we got ourselves into. Why? Because we didn't stick to a scientific method. A scientific method is diplomatical because it's objective. It's al-kalima sawa, the unifying word. The unifying word that we can all agree upon. Like human beings drink water, period. That's it. Is that a statement that people argue with? Well, they can create arguments out of it, but ultimately that simply is a fact. So we need to get that attitude into everybody's head when they research these kind of things. And it's going to be beautiful. Like you have Assyrian words, you have Saba'i words, you have ancient Greek words, you have ancient Akkadian words. We're just, it's like I'm going to finish with this. You know when you grab a cup of water and then you shake that cup of water, and that cup of water has a word written on the bottom of the mug itself, all right? So you want to read it, but the water is still shaky. Once it settles, you can read the word on the bottom of that mug. this example is perfect to understand why the science of linguistics is traumatized in the Middle East. We're still in a geopolitical, sadly, in a religious favoritism earthquake. We're still in it. And I get it, like the masses might have that currently, but when it affects even academic researchers, then that really is sad. And it's not that they are like playing along. No, they're not comfortable when they speak to the public and then say, well, that word's origin is from that language that is traditionally ascribed to a certain religion. People just won't accept that. And probably you might say, well, shrug the whole thing off, and they'll say, who cares? The problem is the science of linguistics needs cooperation. It needs cooperation. And it feeds on it. And that's all I got right now. And have a nice day. Thank you for listening. Please let me know what you think. Write in the comments down below. And have a nice day.